introduction and a little bit of background about the Geological Survey of Ireland and what we're doing and what we might be able to do to help anybody who's interested, and some of the programs we have on offer. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm the research manager with the Geological Survey since last year, and we're developing a new research program, a new research strategy, and that includes funding programs and collaborations and a few other elements of it that I'll go through. So, for those of you that are maybe not familiar with the GSI, it's classified as a geological agency for Ireland, but it's actually a division of the Department of Communications, Energy and Natural Resources, and as such is a government office or a government body. We've been supporting the geoscience sector in various different ways, mostly to do with data sets and databases so far, or at least in the last kind of 20 years that's been our focus. And through that have provided something along the lines of 3% towards GNP and 1.4% employment if you count in the geoscience sector in Ireland, with about 40 permanent staff and 35 staff that come and go on various projects, and it's everything from researchers, technical support, project managers, that kind of thing, along with specialists in terms of, say, for example, geotechnical engineering and those kind of people. In general, we sit somewhere between industry, government and academia in terms of our role in Ireland and what we do, and we try and balance those, but we would probably be more on the industry side than the academia side at the moment. At the moment we're developing projects that will try and connect those two together, but we would provide a lot of support for the industry sector. And then in terms of government, along the lines of policy and information for policy and decision making. So we have three roles, namely as a research funder, a research performer and a research collaborator. And what I mean by those is a research funder, we fund research directly ourselves, and before Christmas we finished off our short call, which was small scale funding for SMEs and or academic partners, for projects of less than 1 year, about 25,000, just short term, small scale seed projects, trial runs, maybe collecting some data to do something further beyond that. Quite flexible in terms of what that money could be used for, and collaborations and things that have to come from that. We try to keep it as open as possible. We also co-fund with some other partners. So some of the talks that you heard this morning from the Irish Research Council and Science Foundation Ireland would have mentioned some of their industry academic partnership programs, and we've been involved in some of those. We're developing a couple of others as well with some of the state agencies. We also have a program with the Fulbright Commission for Ireland-American collaborations. And the logo at the top there is ERA-MIN is actually a project, but just to mention the ERA-NETS, which is one of the European Commission Horizon 2020 programs, and it's bringing together networks of companies and or academics to develop various research projects. In this case it was to do with minerals and raw materials, which is a massive sector, particularly across Europe and in Ireland. And there'll be another stage of that starting in the next few years. As a research performer, we're involved in various projects, mostly around Horizon 2020 and EU projects. That NICTEC logo there is an industry-funded project, solely to do with oil and gas industry in the North Atlantic, mapping the North Atlantic. EMODNet is around mapping the ocean floors, and again, that overlaps into mineral resources in the oceans and various other databases that we're providing through open networks. So everything that we do, the data is freely available. And as a research collaborator, again, you might have heard somebody mention IPRAG, which is our Centre for Research in Applied Geoscience, similar to InSight and AMBER and those, the SFI core funded centres. And this is around applied geosciences. So again, it's minerals, groundwater, geophysics, geochemistry, various different elements of the geoscience sector. And then we have various other partners. These are just a sample of some of the things we do, but in this case, the US Geological Survey and other European surveys. The key areas of expertise, this looks like a long list. The top three I'll go through in a bit more detail. But we basically provide information, data sets, anything for policy or industry or any of those areas around geohazards, heritage and planning. So we also look at environmental studies that come across that come our way. minerals and raw materials sector, quaternary or geotechnical, so anything to do with drilling or quaternary end of things. Geomatics, which is basically information systems for geological data. And then education, outreach and citizen science. So the first three that were on the list there, I know some of you might have seen in the news yesterday and today about the gold and platinum that they've found around Wicklow, south of Wicklow. So this data actually came from TELUS, which is one of our large-scale programs, and it's collecting airborne geophysics and ground geochemistry, so soil geochemistry and stream water geochemistry. And it was the geochemistry guys who found the gold and platinum. So this is the geophysics program, and this is mostly it's all taken from low-flying planes. So you might have seen the signs up on the motorway saying low-flying plane flies at 60 meters above the ground. And this is the kind of data you get from it. So we have magnetic field data, electrical conductivity data, and radioactivity data. All these black bits that you can see in the radioactivity one are actually bogs or water, because you can't get a signal from those. But these are the kind of maps that we generate in the kind of data sets, including raw data. The geochemistry program, I've just put up a couple of the maps here. That's zinc, copper, cobalt, and the nitrates up on the right-hand side. You can see the difference across the board. These are particularly useful for land use planning, environmental health studies, things like the minerals, trying to find various reserves. So they can be used for mixture things across a mixture of disciplines. And again, all this data is open and freely accessible. Just to show the extent of the data we have, this is the plan for 2016-17. So in the light blue we have 2016-17. The dark green areas have all been mapped. This is airborne geophysics, soil geochemistry, and on the right is the stream sediment geochemistry. So you can see that some of them have more coverage than others, but the target by 2017 is to do the top half of the country. And these will all be online. We've just had new data sets go up online for the geophysics for this area. The marine mapping programme, that's been running a little bit longer. It came out of the Irish National Seabed Survey. And you may have seen this map before. This is the real map of Ireland, and that red line outlines our territorial waters. And from that, apart from the bathymetry maps, there are various of the data sets that have come out of that. So on the right-hand side is a 3D map of West Kerry, and these are used for all sorts of things, from fisheries to offshore energy devices trying to siphon and figure out what's down there. We also have a shipwrecks map as well, and again, these maps are online. You can go in and overlay various maps on top of each other. So these are this Marine Institute. This is in conjunction with the Marine Institute. The Marine Institute boat and one of our own inshore shallow water vessels. The Groundwater Program is slightly more complicated in that it connects to various legislation, and we do a lot of work with the EPA, particularly under the Water Framework Directive. And that is trying to assess and characterise our groundwater resources. So across the country we have an average of about 25% of our drinking water sources is groundwater as opposed to surface water. In places like Roscommon it's 100%. And as you know from Roscommon last year and the various restrictions there were and boil notices and everything else, that's partly why, and there can be very complicated pathways. So some of the groundwater mapping that we're doing is trying to figure out what those pathways are and how various potential problems that we can have with contamination. This is again one of our maps in the online viewer, and this is a vulnerability map that we have for the country, so for groundwater resources. But the Groundwater Program looks at karst potential, boreholes, well hydrographics, aquifer classification, water pathways. Geoscience Ireland might be of more interest to you. It's a slightly different beast. And it's a cluster of companies within the GSI who get together under the banner of Geoscience Ireland, who have a secretariat based in the GSI. And they use that cluster to basically to strengthen bids for jobs abroad, for example. So they might be competing nationally for jobs, small-scale geotechnical jobs and the like, but when they go abroad then they can jump in together and actually bid for bigger jobs. And some of the companies in here actually have some very big jobs in places like Oman and over in the Middle East and across Europe and Africa. Actually, one just got a big job in Africa. So This has been in conjunction with Enterprise Ireland have helped us put this together, and it's actually working really well. And it's a very good model. So just back to the funding, GSI's own programme, last year we had the short call. It came off the back of a programme called the Griffiths Geoscience Awards, and they were for relatively large scale projects that ran for about 6 or 7 years, from 2007 to 2014-15. That programme is now finished, and we're redesigning the whole programme, and rather than have 5 or 6 large-scale projects, what we're going to do is break that up and have more opportunities for more people across the board. So the short call that we had last year, for example, was open to universities and SMEs and companies and everybody who was interested. This year we will probably have a call for academics around fellowships, but we'll also have one for postdoctoral researchers. They will be on our website soon, in the next month or so. It's also worth keeping an eye on the SFI and Irish Research Council websites. Again, we're a partner in some of their programmes. For the IRC one is the investigators program, or for the SFI one is the investigators program. For the IRC one, it was the Enterprise Partnership Scheme, and we're now reconfiguring that, so that should be up in the next while. TELUS and Infomar themselves also have short call projects. Anything on their website will also be on the GSI website. And then ICRAG, as I mentioned, we're currently developing new projects that we're hoping will be brought in under the ICRAG structure, so this hub and spoke structure, and that will involve geotechnical engineering and geohazards. So anybody working in that space can then collaborate between industry and the team. So I'll leave it there. If you have any questions or if you want any information, gsi.ie/research will have all our calls. gsi.ie, if you go to that main website, that will bring you to TELUS, Infomar, any of our other programs, Groundwater, and all our maps are online. There's other data that I didn't show you there around geohazards and landslides and that kind of stuff, and they're all online as well through our various map viewers. So, I'll leave it there. Any questions?